Well, I just got done trimming up or ironing out, smoothing out the wingtip bow down there. And I've got this cutout made here for the fuel tank and got that all done today. Now I can start shrinking the fabric. I was hoping to have this done by now today. Today's Friday, March 14th. I've been making pretty good progress on this. I was hoping to have this all heat shrunk and starting to put the poly brush on here. And I had a good start on it last night. I had the wingtip bow done, but I needed to turn the wing over, get it finished up on the top side. Well, I had to wait for my son to come out this morning to do that, to give me a hand with that. We got that done early this morning, but then I was busy all day, or most of the day. Our internet service went out a couple of days ago, and we got a technician come in today. Well, he found the cable was bad between where the service comes down off the pole, and then I've got a service box out there, and then it comes underground to the cabin. I like underground services because then none of the equipment or anything you have to worry about it when you're doing anything with the equipment and stuff. Probably got a sharp rock or something when it finally worked its way through it. It was there waiting for that guy to call this morning, because if they call and you miss them, then you might not get another appointment for 2 weeks or something like that. I wanted to make sure I was there to take the call when the guy called. And then, of course, he had to be there when he got here so he could show him where the modem was and stuff like that, where everything was at. Well, it turned out that cable was bad under the ground. Well, we wanted to put another underground cable in. So I had to get the excavator out, one of the excavators out, and dig a trench for him and get that cable buried. And it comes with a new conduit that it's in nowadays instead of the just buried cable. So it should be good. Hopefully it'll be good for a couple more years. Anyway, we got the internet back on. So that took a good portion of the day dealing with that. We're in a blind area for cell phones, so we depend on the internet for our cell phones to work. We wanted to make sure and get that going for that. And then a few other things that we do that we can probably live without. I like to read the news and stuff and keep up with things like that. And then we watch movies at night on the internet. So anyway, that took most of the day. When we got that done, then I came out here and I was able to finish up doing this fuel tank bay area here, cutting the fabric out here and getting this all glued down all the way around. I've got it glued down real good underneath this rib right here and around the perimeter and stuff. And I just got done while I come out and had to finish doing that wingtip bow. I had come around the wingtip bow most of the way, but I wanted to overlap that by an inch there. And so I didn't run the fabric all the way around. So I had to finish shaping that fabric around that wingtip bow and then gluing it down. And I just got done with that. If it was cool in here today, cool out today, the glue takes a lot longer to dry up when it's cold out in here. So anyway, I went and did some other things while we were waiting for that glue to dry. I just came out and finished going over it with the iron and finishing that up. So now I'll go over this with the iron and shrink this fabric. And the first spot I'm going to do is here on this fuel tank bay. And because this is tacked down with poly brush in places here, I've got to go over it, those places with the iron, and that heats it up enough to release that bond so that the fabric can shrink over that. Otherwise it wouldn't shrink. So this is the first spot I'm going to do is right here. Then I'll go down to the wingtip bow and that inboard rib, or outboard rib, I mean. And we'll do the next one, and then we'll come back down here. Don't want to do it all at once, otherwise it can pull this wing out of shape. And the last thing I want to do is twist this wing out of shape. This is just the initial shrink. I've got the iron set up for 250 degrees or so, and we go over it and do the initial shrink here at 250 degrees. Do this side, and then turn the wing over and do the other side. And then after we do the initial shrink at 250 degrees, then we'll do it again at 350 degrees, which will give the final shrink and tighten the fabric up. And then once we get that done, then we put a coat of poly brush on, and that's going to be stinky in here then. I mean, we've just been using this Polytack so far, which and a little bit of polybrush. It has a little bit of odor on it, but it hasn't been too bad yet because it's just been a little bit at a time, and I've had the door open, been able to get fresh air circulation in here. But once I go through and start putting the polybrush on this wing, it's going to get stinky in here. So I went out and dug out my rotator that I built when I did the air fuselage, and I modified it last year on that other wing to do it so that I could rotate. And now I don't need my son to help me rotate this wing anymore. I can get my wife to do it because all I need to do is grab the other end down there, pick it up enough to get that sawhorse out from underneath it on that other end. It's just resting on the one sawhorse now. Get somebody to pick the sawhorse out of there, and then I can rotate the wing. As soon as I get this fabric filled with the polybrush, then I start laying out for the rib stitching. We're going to want the wing tipped up. And last year what I did was I had it on this rotator on this end, and then on the other end down there, I rotated it up and tied it off to a cleat up there in the beam overhead so that this thing could be vertical. So we could work on both sides of it at the same time when we're doing the rib stitching. So you can see this fabric here is loose now. I've got it pulled fairly tight, fairly snug. It's not real loose. It's not saggy or anything, but it's fairly loose. So once we get done with the ironing on this, the heat shrinking, this stuff will be really tight like a drum head. Well, that is pretty good. That was loose over the top of this false bar here now, and now that's pretty tight. So, and of course it's getting hot from the iron, so you can see maybe how tight that gets, just this first shrink. And they tell you that you can leave that iron sitting right on that fabric, that it's not going to burn it or scorch it or anything like that. It's not like silk or wool, cotton, where if you leave the iron on there too long, it's going to heat up too much and it's going to scorch. Actually, you want to leave it on there long enough to make sure that the fabric gets heated up to the temperature. So if you don't get it shrunk all the way, then it'll get saggy as we're flying over time. And there's a possibility that if it gets out in the sun in hot air, like say if it was in Arizona or New Mexico or someplace where it was really hot in the sunshine and the sun hits it, it could cause it to shrink even more underneath the sun if it's not fully shrunk here like this, and it could cause a problem if it did that. So like I said, it's not hurting anything. I've got these spots on here that I spot welded down with the Polytack when I put this fabric over the top to hold it down when we flip the wing over. And I got to make sure and leave that on there so that that stuff loosens up and that fabric shrinks in that Polytack. So this front one is still a little bit loose here. I'll go over it again, hold the iron on it a little longer. I don't want to hold it very long on these glued seams because the glue could pop loose then. This is shrinking this up tight. And what we don't want it to happen now is to loosen the glue. The glue will melt. Doggone irons got a sensor in them, or if they're not moving, they hold still for a few seconds, it'll shut them off. Makes it a pain in the butt. I tried calibrating this iron, and by the time it'd get heated up enough to start moving the thermometer, the thing would shut off and it'd have to start over again. It's really a pain. You can see why they do that, because people wind up leaving irons sitting and not moving, and it might catch on fire, something on fire, but it sure doesn't help with this. Even here, if I'm not moving it steady here, that thing will shut itself off. All right, now Either side, yeah, you got more room on that side. Slide it out.
Wait.
All right.
No, it's gotta go.
Yeah, you want it underneath. Yeah, yeah.
A little bit higher. A second.
Okay. All right.
It is saggy baggy.
You can tell the difference now. This is the way the other side was. Well, I got that top side heat shrunk down with the first shrink. I had my wife help me turn this wing over and went down with her. Well, just sat and watched a movie or TV show, visited a little bit. Now we'll come back up here and do this bottom of this wing. And I can do the first shrink on this one at the 250, and then I can turn it up and do the bigger shrink at the 300, and then I have to get somebody to help me turn the wing over, do the other side, but I can get that done. Yeah, I might as well do that tonight. I was thinking I'd just get this one done tonight, come out and tomorrow and do the big shrink. But if I do this, both of them tonight, then tomorrow I get help, get this wing turned over, and then do the second shrink. Now you can see this pulling this fabric. Even when the heater, the iron is down here, I can see it start pulling the wrinkles out down here as that fabric shrinks. Fabric just popped just as it slid over that rib. Again, that's why I did the lacing on the ribs there, so it doesn't pull those ribs out of joint, out of whack. Before we go any farther, we've got a bunch of places here where the fabric is tenting up. We've got protrusions sticking up through the fabric, like right here is attach point for the jury strut. Back down here, we've got the attachments for the wing struts themselves. Before we do the next stretch, or shrink I should say, we need to relieve these so that they go down. Now these will open up as the fabric shrinks away from them on the next shrink. Probably wouldn't have hurt to put some polytack on those so they didn't fray so bad. And here on the front, I've got this new tie down. And then again, we've got the strut attach fittings. Now I get another razor blade. Razor blades dull pretty fast. I buy lots of razor blades. Keep them on hand and change them regularly. The fabric dulls them pretty quickly, but right now what I'm doing is I'm going against the metal here to make my cuts. Trying to keep them as tight as possible around there. It probably doesn't make any difference because it's going to shrink away from them anyway, and we wind up putting grommets and stuff over those anyhow, so probably being a little more careful with those than I need to be. All right, now I turn the iron up to 350 degrees. 300 degrees first. I'm going to do this a little slow again. All right, I got this bottom side all done. I'm going to take the little hobby iron here and get down in between the fabric here that's between these two strut attach points, because that hasn't gotten tightened up. Probably don't need to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. It'll take a minute or two here for the hobby iron to heat up, but this thing's done pretty good now on this side. So now I have to, it's 12:30 now, so I'll have to wait till tomorrow and get help turning this over to finish the top side. Well, I'm happy with that. And we'll get the top side finished, tightened, and then we'll start cleaning it up and getting ready to put the poly brush on it. All right, I'm working on shrinking this fabric again here. I worked on this top side yesterday, got it shrunk to the 250, then we flipped the wing over, and I did the bottom side last night. I got done with it about, well, it was after 1 o'clock before I finally got back down to the cabin. Till after 12:30 or so anyway. Got the top side, or the bottom side, finished down to the 350 degrees. And I needed to get it turned over here to come and do the final shrink on this top side. So I thought I needed some help getting the wing turned over. Well, I figured out how to do it by myself now. Although I spent enough time on it last night that I didn't really want to work on it anymore last night. So come out this morning and turn this wing back over now, and I'll go over this top side for the final shrink. And we'll be done, hopefully, with this part of it, the shrinking. The shrinkage, we got my iron set for linen, which is the highest setting that it goes on here. And as close as I could tell, that puts it about over 300 degrees anyway. Well, we want the final shrink to be at 350 degrees. And that tape right there, I had a little bit of a spot right there where I didn't get it cut exactly perfect. By putting this iron on there, that shrunk that tape down and got it brought through so the seam matches all the way along there. You be really careful doing that, or you wind up getting it shrunk too much. Done that before. Look real careful here on this fabric. You can see there's just a slight change in the color where the iron has been over it with the different temperatures. It doesn't really matter how many times you go over it at this temperature, or if you leave the iron sitting on it or anything else. It's only going to shrink the fabric to a certain point, and the fabric is heat resistant, so you're not going to scorch it or anything by leaving the iron on there. But you want to leave it on long enough that you do get the temperature of the fabric up so that it does shrink. All right, that wingtip panel is done. I'll come back in here and had some here on this leading edge where it didn't get shrunk at the initial shrink, and it still got sags in it because that aluminum underneath it absorbs the heat, and the fabric doesn't get heated up and shrunk all the way. That tightened it up. I thought I had this rib all tightened up using that little hobby iron, but obviously that thing doesn't get quite as hot, or maybe it doesn't give it enough area to get hot, because when I use this iron on there, then that tightened that up even more. Another beautiful day out there today. It froze pretty hard again last night. It was cold, chilly outside. Warmed up in the sunshine, of course. It's pretty nice. Frost is melting off the ground out there now. Road is mucky because it's been frozen and hard, and then it thaws out in the daytime. It's pretty nice, but this is supposed to be the last day. It's supposed to, actually the forecast said it might snow or rain last night. It didn't. Frosted and froze, so that was pretty nice. Not bad anyway. But forecast says we're going to be back into snow and rain now. Oh, we'll take what we can get. We don't have 6 feet of snow on the ground anyway. And we missed the 10-degree weather. My son was here for that. And we were down in Florida where it was 90, 85 degrees, 88 degrees. Almost too warm down there for us. Not going to complain though. Got to see the grandbabies. The Oregon coast was cool. and wet, windy. Now, should I do another one? Because doing this inboard end here where the fuel tank is, that doesn't really count. So I'll go ahead and do another one here. Try to keep this balanced out as much as possible. All right, well, I think that does it. Now, that's not all the ironing. There's still going to be quite a bit of ironing to do. I want to put all of the finishing tapes and stuff on there. But that is it for now. So now the fun part begins. So let's see here. Now I got to wash all this down with MEK to get it clean. I'm going to go ahead and do this side first, turn it over and do the bottom side. And then I'll go ahead and polybrush the bottom side of it, let that cure up, turn it back over, probably clean this side again just one more time for good measure, and then polybrush this side. And then once that's all done, then we can start laying out the rib stitching. So I got my Beetle rubber gloves on here now. I'll put those on. Oh, I got a new mask. Want to wear that because we're going to have a lot of fumes here now. I've got the door open. I'm going to turn this overhead fan on so we get some more air circulation in here. Make some more noise, but get some more air circulation in here. All right, so the idea of that, going over that with the MEK, is to make sure there's no fingerprints, no grease, oil, dirt, or anything like that on there. Before I start putting the polybrush on it, I'll go over it with a tack cloth and make sure there's nothing on there going to be in the polybrush itself. So we want to be real careful. You don't want to flood these areas where the seams are and stuff, because the last thing we want to do now is open up one of those seams or loosen up one of those seams. Now we've got the fabric is all stretched out tight. Everything's perfect that way. If we pop a seam now, it's going to pop. So that's been done now. I'll let that flash off a little bit. I'm done with the fabric work for now. The next step that we go to with fabric will be working with the seam tapes and stuff. We'll be laying tapes out across all these ribs. So anyway, I'm all done with the fabric stuff itself. I can put that away. I will need to get more fabric out and start cutting it to make doilies and whatnot for the inspection covers and all the different gussets and whatnot that go on here, but that'll be later. So the next thing to do will be get out the polybrush and mix it up and start putting polybrush on there. And I want to get a big brush to do that because we're going to be covering a lot of area. And the whole point of that is to take the brush and the polybrush, brush into this fabric and force it through the weave so the polybrush actually penetrates the weave and gets all the way through it. There'll be drip showing up on here and stuff. That's fine. It'll look ugly because you'll see runs and stuff on the backside, whatnot, but that's fine. That's what you want. You want to get penetration of the polybrush through the weave of the fabric. So we'll do this side, bottom side first. And the reason I'm doing the bottom side first is because that's the side everybody looks at because the airplane's up on floats and up overhead, so you'd be walking underneath it. And if you get any drips or anything going through there, the polybrush will drip down onto the lower side, and then again it'll make spots where you get gloss finish or difference in the gloss and whatnot on the finish, which really was not going to make any difference on this because this is going to be finished with polyurethane paint on the top of it anyway, which is going to cover up any of that stuff. But those are the rules. So I'm going to take a little break here for a minute or two. MEK is pretty much flashed off now. I got to get my brush fixed up. So what I like to do with the brush, I'll get some crazy glue, some super glue, and glue in to the bristles on the brush so that try to keep any of those bristles from coming out of the brush and get embedded into the poly brush when we put it on. So anyway, I'm going to take a break for a couple minutes here.